Well, thank you. Everybody's done the slides for me, it seems, so I don't have much to say after all of this. But I'm here actually to speak on behalf of the CAMARA project itself, not Deutsche Telekom. Even though we very much are supportive of it, I want to represent our entire community, all of the operators and vendors and people who are part of it. So as Henry stated, we launched this project, CAMARA, a year ago, right here in Barcelona at the Mobile World Congress. When we launched, there was 22 partners. Got some logos here of those partners. I think the GSMA had an old logo back then, so we've got that one there even too. It's a joint project, jointly launched by the Linux Foundation and the GSMA to support our telecom community, to make APIs available and to get them ready. And it's launched with one simple idea. And that simple idea is to standardize, and I'm using some air quotes here, the developer APIs. Because the idea here is this is not a standards body. This is an open source project, and that's a key differentiator and a way that we can move quicker. So it's been a year later. We've had quite a bit of progress. And I think even as with the open gateway slide, this one's out of date also. Sorry about that. But we're now at 59 named partners and a whole bunch more that are working in the project that haven't gone through and put their logo onto our slides and things like that. So many, many active participants in this. We have 12 active APIs being worked on and more being added all the time. We've got regular steering committee calls that are open for all project members, and there's regularly 80+ participants actively on those calls. And of course, even more with our mailing list, over 250 subscribers to it, so growing every day. And it is the development home for the APIs from the GSMA Open Gateway project, as Juan Carlos told us about earlier. So while this is all fantastic, for people who are new here and haven't heard about CAMARA, let me just tell a little bit about that so we know what that is. So first off, what are network APIs? We saw a few examples earlier. Here's a couple of examples that Deutsche Telekom is showing and demonstrating at our booth. We have a location verification API. For instance, if we look at how a developer could use this, imagine that I'm here in Spain. I'm going to go to an ATM. I'm going to get some money out. And the bank says, hey, this person's taking a large sum of money out. Is their phone in Spain? And then if it is, maybe we can release the money. If my phone's still sitting back in Germany, maybe that's some fraud. Maybe they should not allow that transaction to go through. So kind of a fraud prevention type of API. The other one that we're showing, and we're demoing this on our Deutsche Telekom booth in partnership with Microsoft even, it's on their booth, is a quality on demand API that we are doing with Siemens Energy. This one is a remote maintenance type of API for these large industrial energy projects, wind turbines, things like that, where when they break down, they can send a technician, use a HoloLens, and phone back to the factory to get some support. So these are the kind of network APIs. These are the things that we're looking at trying to create and develop. As I said before, we're working on 12 different API families. I'm not going to walk through every one of those, because I'll be here all day if I tell you all the great things we can do with these APIs. So you want to talk about them, come find me. We can talk about each one in detail, but there's a lot of them, and I think we have several more in the queue going through our technical committee to get them excuse me, added into CAMARA to get the open source work started. So why was CAMARA started? When it was started, the idea was to solve 3 simple problems that we need to solve as an industry in order for all of us to be able to make some money on these APIs. The first one that we tried to solve is scale. There's a lot of different companies out there, all these great startups. They all want to be the next unicorn. And in order to do that, you can't just use APIs that are available in one network in one country. It just doesn't work. You need to have the same APIs available in multiple countries. Going towards the consistency point. We need to have consistent APIs These APIs need to be available in as many countries as possible. And they then need to also be simple. Our telco networks are very complex. Every telco network is different. We have a different mix of vendors. We have a different mix of technologies. We have a different mix of naming conventions. We have a different list of everything. And the challenge with that is that a lot of these APIs that exist today, and there are many in our network, are very complex. Those APIs are standardized in many standard bodies over many years with a lot of very smart, very technical people, and they work. But they don't work for the average developer who knows nothing about excuse me, a telco API. The most that most developers know about our telco networks when it comes to APIs is, I've got some bars on my phone. How many bars does it have? And if they don't have enough bars or it's not working, you restart the phone. Well, we need to give them a simple API that they can call to do that, and that's what CAMARA is trying to do. We're trying to create simple, intent-based APIs where a developer can make a call to the network. In the case of the quality on demand that I showed, I want quality, better quality on my phone. This is me for the next hour. That simple of a call goes to the networks. Within our networks, we can then take that API and we can translate it into the complex standardized APIs that are needed to be pushed out into the network. And that simple API call can be used by developers globally. They can be used in our network at Deutsche Telekom. They can be used in Juan Carlos' network in Spain or anywhere else where they may be. And that's what we're looking to do with these simple APIs with CAMARA. The other thing is we've got to, as I said, how do we figure out how we work with all of these other places? CAMARA itself is focused on one very small task: northbound APIs towards developers. We do not want to solve the problems down below. There's many other bodies that are doing that. And as Juan Carlos mentioned, within the larger open gateway framework, we're coordinating a lot of these activities. We're making sure they work. And CAMARA is purely northbound towards developers and is the home where the GSMA Open Gateway will be developing those APIs. So, what's next for CAMARA project? It's been growing. As with Open Gateway, there's been a lot of talk about it this week at Mobile World Congress. We've got a lot of interest. So, of course, we want to add additional APIs into the projects, APIs that are interesting for people, APIs that are interesting for developers. We need to start adding more customers or communication service providers, get more operators on board, get some of the hyperscalers on board, go to where the developers are, meet them where they are. We also want to strengthen our community with a technical steering committee to really get the technical folks involved to make sure we're making the right usable APIs. We want to start thinking about the API lifecycle management consistency. We've launched some first APIs today, but they're going to change as technology advances, and we need to ensure that we have a mechanism working with the GSMA and others to ensure these APIs are updated in all of the networks so we don't get out of sync. And of course, we need to start working on the documentation, the availability, the federation, and all of those activities there. So with that being said, last but not least, if you want to know more about CAMARA Project, you can join our mailing list at camaraproject.org. You can actually start working in the open source community today. There's nothing stopping anybody from jumping in and throwing in code into the GitHub repository. It's open source. There's no cost. There's no fees. We don't kick certain vendors out. None of that. All open. Come and join us. So with that being said, thank you, and give it back here to Henry.